Hi everyone, I'm delighted to share my master's project with you. It's called Banking on Trust, and it's a user experience research project with a number of different strands. It's about understanding open banking as a new way of making payments, what it offers, why it hasn't yet been widely adopted, and what's standing in the way. It's also about exploring the human side of financial technology, the doubts people feel, the friction they encounter, and the reasons they hesitate to use something unfamiliar. But then it's also about the development of a redesigned payment experience and the evaluation of the outcomes of this through a detailed user study. We'll talk more about this later in the presentation. But over the next few minutes, I'll walk you through the journey of this project, the problem I set out to solve, how I approached it, what I discovered, and why it matters. So let's start by introducing the challenge. Open banking is a new way of paying directly from your bank without needing to enter card details or use a third-party app, which sounds great, but despite its potential, adoption to date has been slow. Many people don't recognize the option, feel unsure how it works, or simply don't trust it. And if trust is missing in finance, you've already lost the user. And so my project set out to explore whether design, not tech or regulation, could help shift that perception. Before we talk more about that, we need to look at where open banking came from and who's involved. Open banking started out as a regulatory idea. Back in the 2000s, the EU wanted to shake up financial services to increase competition and give people more control over their data. So they passed laws that forced banks to share access to account information securely through what are known as APIs. The stakeholders involved all have very different motivations. Banks were told to open up, but this came with big costs and no obvious financial reward for them. Fintech companies, on the other hand, saw an opportunity to build smarter, faster, more personalized financial services, but they rely on banks to play ball. Regulators sit around this all, trying to make it safe and fair. And customers, we just want things to work. We want to know our money is safe, and we don't want to think too hard about it. The result is a system full of potential, but sometimes struggling to feel seamless or fully trusted. To explore this challenge, I used a mixed methods approach. That meant combining desk research of academic literature and industry reports with expert interviews and user studies with real people, iterating on designs based on what I learned, and then evaluating the outcomes through further user studies. At every step, I was looking to learn what helps people feel safe, confident, and in control when paying. So this wasn't just about what looks nice, it was about uncovering emotional roadblocks and fixing them through better user experience. In addition to the literature and industry desk research to understand the challenges facing open banking, I also interviewed Cormac Ban, an expert in open banking at Global Payments who's worked in the space for over a decade. He highlighted to me several big blockers, like inconsistent banking processes in the journey, especially in Ireland, requirement on merchants to invest more effort into the user experience to drive adoption, and the lack of a quote TFL moment, that tipping point where people just start trusting and using something, like what happened with contactless payments when the London Underground enabled them for payment of train fares. To delve deeper into the space, I took a look at a real-life open banking payment experience, selecting Ryanair's Pay by Bank as a use case due to the airline's high profile and high e-commerce traffic. I built an interactive prototype of the experience and conducted a user study. The structure of the study comprised two defined tasks with clear success criteria. Both qualitative and quantitative data were collected, including semantic differentials to assess perceived trust across three subscales of benevolence, integrity, and competence. And the results of the study were clear. Most people didn't choose Pay by Bank to begin with, but once they tried it in a follow-up task, they found it well-intentioned, honest, secure, as well as reliable and capable overall. So while few users initially chose Pay by Bank, most trusted it after using it, suggesting that boosting adoption depends less on the process itself and more on prepayment education and making the option more visible and appealing at the point of choice. Armed with those insights, I then set about redesigning the experience, looking to build trust in three key ways. First, I focused on building user confidence, adding step indicators, writing UX copy, more visible controls, adding explainer text, and reducing ambiguity through progressive disclosure. Second, I looked to improve prepayment education to make the Pay by Bank option more visible, more appealing, and easier to understand right from the start. And third, I introduced refinements to the interaction design to make the whole experience feel smoother and more intuitive. Then I tested the redesigned experience in a second user study. The same study structure as the first user study, the same tasks, the only difference being that this time users would interact with the redesigned prototype. And the results of this second user study, more users indicated that the preference would be pay by bank, an increase of 40%. People completed the flow faster. And most importantly, there was significant improvement in perceptions of trust across the subscales of benevolence and integrity. Perception of competence stayed roughly the same overall, and that's likely related to user concerns about the transition into their banking app, which surfaced in the qualitative insights. But broadly speaking, these results suggest that trust isn't just about security, it's about clarity, control, and consistency, all of which design can influence. So what did I learn? This project wasn't just about improving one payment experience. It's about showing that design can play a critical role in helping people feel safe with new financial technologies. What I found is that trust isn't just built through security features in the background, it's built in the moment through clear instructions, helpful context, and intuitive design. When users feel confident and informed, they're more willing to try something unfamiliar. And that's powerful because it shows that design can be a bridge between complex systems and everyday users, especially in a space like finance where trust is everything. So what's the big takeaway? For me, it's this. Open banking adoption isn't just a technical or regulatory problem, it's a design challenge. The findings suggest that the redesigned pay-by-bank experience led to higher trust, faster task completion, and greater willingness to use the method. But what really changed was people's perception. They no longer dismissed pay-by-bank out of habit, they started to see it as a real option. And that shift didn't come from adding features. It came from thoughtful, human-centered design that respected how people think, feel, and make decisions. Of course, there's more to do. This research focused mainly on younger, digitally fluent users. So testing with older adults or people with lower digital confidence would give deeper insight to how inclusive the design really is. There's also the transition between the merchant side and the bank's app, a moment that still causes hesitation. As financial technologies become more complex and AI plays a bigger role, further assessment will be required to understand how clear, human-centered UX can help to keep users connected, confident, and in control. And long-term, there's a big opportunity for banks, merchants, and payment platforms to work together to build a shared, consistent design language for open banking, one that doesn't just work technically, but feels trustworthy. If we want people to embrace open banking, we need to make the experience feel secure, transparent, and genuinely worth switching to. That's it for me. Thank you very much for listening.